Ready to go. Okay. So first of all, thanks to everybody involved in this, plus all the attendees and that have stayed with us and participated in this with questions and so on. This particular session that we're doing now has to do with deception, which in reality is what the whole conference has been about, I think. It is a pervasive theme through multi-level marketing. And I think it's appropriate that our last session focuses on deception. We're also talking, in this case, about hard data and data about specific claims that are used in recruiting involving promises of money, income, and part of the financial solicitation, but also part of the product lure of claims that are made about some of the various products at multi-level marketing. We're going from there to the even a wider picture of deception regarding the psychological manipulation that has been discussed here, also in reference to cultism or undue influence, a very insidious form of manipulation using language and terms that in some cases almost unbelievable in their level of manipulation. So our guests, our panelists here now, I'm going to introduce as they appear here. And our first is Laura Smith, who is an attorney, and she's the legal director of an organization many people have probably encountered. It's called Truth in Advertising. It's a nonprofit, sometimes called TINA. And Laura oversees the legal strategy and the advocacy actions for TINA. She's led numerous investigations into the deceptive health and income claims of MLMs. In fact, TINA has investigated over 140 MLMs. So Tina, you can go ahead. You got your camera and mic turned on, and then we can start.
Great. Thank you, Robert, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. I'm Laura Smith, the legal director of Truth in Advertising, or TINA.org for short. I'd like to start by thanking Bill Keefe and the College of New Jersey for hosting this conference and for inviting me to join what has been a really great and diverse group of panelists. I'm going to share some slides today, so let me get those up. Okay. For those of you not familiar, we're a consumer advocacy organization that works to out, stop, and prevent deceptive marketing. We focus on advertising and marketing of all kinds and in all sectors of the economy. And we're a hybrid organization in that we have journalists who write articles for our site and lawyers who pursue legal actions in which we regularly provide evidence to state and federal agencies, and sometimes international agencies and self-regulatory bodies as well. You may not believe this, but our work investigating MLMs is only a small fraction of what we do. And I'd just like to add that TINA.org is not anti-MLM. We are anti-false and deceptive marketing used by all companies, not just MLMs. Some other areas we focus on outside of MLM marketing are made in USA marketing, negative option offers, unsubstantiated health claims, and social media influencer marketing. But today, of course, my focus is on advertising by multi-level marketing companies. So to begin, why does TINA.org investigate MLMs? The answer is actually pretty simple. We've received hundreds of consumer complaints regarding MLMs. Here's just one example on the screen. It's one of our earliest consumer submissions, which helped spur TINA.org to investigate this industry. And as a result of these complaints, our organization has spent a fair amount of time researching deceptive marketing tactics within the industry. Before I get into what we've found, let me first give a very brief overview of the laws that we use to evaluate MLM companies' advertising and marketing materials. The laws apply with equal force to claims made directly by the companies, as well as those made by their distributors. So under Truth in Advertising law, MLM companies' marketing must be truthful, must have evidence to back up any claims made, and must be fair. That's the broad brush under which we examine all companies advertising, not just MLMs. But I'd like to drill down a little further into the law for the two most common types of deceptive marketing claims we see by MLMs. First, health claims. With respect to health claims, FTC law says you cannot make a representation that any food, drug, or dietary supplement is effective in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of any disease or disorder unless you can support such a claim with competent and reliable scientific evidence. With respect to income claims, the FTC has made it clear that MLM companies should only advertise results that are generally achievable. Typical. Note that I didn't say average, which is usually an entirely different number, as Commissioner Phillips noted yesterday. And if they don't advertise generally achievable or typical results, they should clearly and conspicuously disclose what is. So here's a list of examples of income claims that should not be made. With this legal background, I'd like to talk about some past Tina.org investigations that have collectively revealed an astounding number of MLM companies violating these laws by making deceptive health and income claims. So to start, in 2016, Tina.org undertook an investigation of every DSA member company listed as selling nutritional supplements. What we found is that 97%, or 60 out of the 62 companies we investigated, were making illegal health claims, either independently or through their distributors. We cataloged more than 2,000 examples of such claims, demonstrating that this is a systemic problem within the industry. And so we're clear, the focus of our investigation was not on generalized structure function claims. Rather, our investigation focused on claims involving diseases and disorders, like the ones you're seeing on the screen, being made by either the company or its distributors. We identified more than 55 DSA member companies whose distributors claimed their products could address cancer, more than 45 companies with members claiming help with diabetes, and over 40 touting their supplements for arthritis. And more recently, Tina.org looked at MLM companies making health claims during the COVID-19 pandemic and found that they were still engaged in this type of deceptive marketing. Tina.org also investigated every multi-level marketing company that was a member of the DSA in 2017 and looked at the manner in which each member company advertised its business opportunity. We found that 137 out of the 140, or more than 97% of all DSA member companies, were making or had made false and unsubstantiated income claims. We cataloged more than 3,000 examples of such claims, making it abundantly clear that this is also a systemic problem within the industry. And in both of those investigations, we notified the DSA Code of Ethics Administrator, and each MLM company of our findings. We've also filed several complaints with the FTC regarding deceptive advertising claims made by MLMs. I'll briefly offer two examples. The first is, years ago, Vima Nutrition Company was the subject of an ongoing Tina.org investigation after receiving complaints from college students and their parents about the business's marketing practices, like the one I showed at the beginning of this talk. What struck us about this company was not just the deceptive health and income claims, but the slick marketing that was clearly targeting high school and college students. We filed complaints with the FTC, as well as international regulators in the UK, Ireland, and Canada, notifying them of deceptive marketing issues, as well as Italy's action against the company. And as many of you know, the FTC ultimately sued the company, resulting in a $238 million settlement. We also investigated Nerium International, now known as Neora, an MLM that sells a line of skincare products and brain and age-defying supplements. We compiled more than 200 examples of unsubstantiated health and disease treatment claims made about company products, and another 200 examples of atypical income claims. We reached out to the company directly about this marketing when it became clear that Nerium would not voluntarily address the deceptive marketing. We filed complaint letters with the FTC and Texas Attorney General. And again, as many of you know, the FTC sued Nerium under its new name, Neora, and its CEO, and the lawsuit is currently pending. And as the Nerium example shows, we don't just file complaints with the FTC, we also go to states in appropriate cases. Just a few weeks ago, in fact, Tina.org filed a complaint with the state of Washington AG's office against the California clothing MLM LuLaRoe for violating a February 2021 consent decree. I'll back up for just a minute and explain that in 2019, the state of Washington sued the company for operating a pyramid scheme, and that lawsuit resulted in a court order that permanently prohibits LuLaRoe from making unsubstantiated income claims about the business opportunity to Washington residents. An ongoing Tina.org investigation of LuLaRoe's marketing found evidence that the company is violating that order by marketing the LuLaRoe business opportunity with atypical income claims, many of which were published on company platforms, including its website and social media pages, and included statements by LuLaRoe founder Deanne Stidham. I think whoever's in the back end just has to unmute the other Tina.org speaker so that we can let the volume on the video play. Thank you.
What stood out to me was seeing how it was literally affecting each of these families' lives. What they were able to then do for their family, whether it was making more money, going on a trip, being able to pay for bills that they didn't know they could pay, just how much work these retailers were putting into it and how much success they were finding through that hard work that they were doing.
To me, I want to see more people debt-free. I want to see more people that are independent financially, not being afraid to go after what they want.
And this video was on the website after the February 2021 consent decree. These findings are what prompted our complaint to the Washington AG, urging the office to reopen its investigation of LuLaRoe and take appropriate enforcement action. And we don't stop at the FTC and state AGs. Tina.org has filed several complaints with the Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council, the DSSRC. For example, in July of last year, we filed a DSSRC complaint against California Skincare and Cosmetics MLM Beauty Counter after finding that it was using unsubstantiated income claims to market its business opportunity, as this video demonstrates.
We are honest, authentic, transparent. We take care of our people, we take care of the planet, and we help people make profit and earn much needed income or just additional income that makes their life a little bit easier.
What Beauty Chatter means to me is flexibility, more time with my children, and financial freedom.
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom. Financial freedom.
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom.
And we have an opportunity on our platform for people to earn an income.
Replaced an income.
Replace your job.
Replace that income.
Replace my corporate salary.
Retire from my full-time corporate career.
Doubled my teaching income.
If it's replacing your full-time income, whatever success is going to look like for you, you can have that with Beauty Counter.
You have an opportunity and a responsibility to help other families who may need money to pay that mortgage.
Paying the mortgage. Paying the mortgage.
Pay for the mortgage every month.
It's an opportunity to build a business that can be very rewarding financially.
I have increased my income by 600%.
Pay for one of my children's all 4 years of undergrad.
It has afforded me to live the life that we're living, to travel more.
And I turned this business into a six-figure income.
Tina.org compiled more than 100 examples of unsubstantiated income claims, and after filing our complaint, the DSSRC issued a report finding that the company had engaged in deceptive marketing, and that after our complaint had, quote, immediately and adequately addressed each and every claim brought to its attention. Certain companies, and the number is growing, respond to us without the need for further intervention. For example, last fall, we investigated Market America, an MLM founded in the 90s by former Amway distributor J.R. Ridinger. The company, which offers a plethora of different products, advertised its business opportunity as, quote, a proven plan for your financial success. Our investigation, which resulted in a sampling of more than 750 deceptive income claims, focused exclusively on the company's marketing of its business opportunity on its own platforms, including its website and social media pages, as well as platforms controlled by the company's CEO. More than 450 of the examples were published just in 2020. Here are some of those examples.
I want you to imagine for a moment. Imagine a day, instead of losing your job or getting a cut or downsize or just fighting to stay even, your income goes up every year.
Before Market America, I was an attorney.
I was in the health and wellness industry.
I was a sales manager in the energy sector.
I was an elementary school teacher. My family has a personal training and wellness studio.
Prior to MA, I actually was a college student.
So having time and financial freedom has just been the greatest gift in our lives.
Thank goodness for this Market America business, simply because there was an ongoing income that helped us pay down the mortgage.
But with Market America, it was the very first time that I could see both of us having financial freedom and having time freedom and the security that a check was coming to us every single week.
Time and financial freedom is priceless. Time and financial freedom have really changed my life. I've been able to replace my income.
So having more time and more financial freedom has impacted my life by giving me the ability to travel.
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom.
Time freedom.
Time freedom.
Time freedom.
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 Freedom. Freedom. Economic freedom.
So what did we do? We sent a warning letter to Market America notifying it of TINA.org's findings and asking that the company remedy the deceptive marketing immediately. Within 1 week, the vast majority of the claims in TINA.org's database had been removed from publication. And while we didn't need to file complaints at the time, we will continue to monitor Market America to determine if further action is needed. The reason I've taken you through all of these examples is not to show you how busy we are, but rather to highlight how widespread the issue of MLMs making deceptive health and income claims is. We have thousands upon thousands of examples of deceptive income and health claims cataloged in hundreds of databases on our website. Many of these claims have been removed from publication, and several of these companies have been brought to justice, but widespread deception remains. And as such, we are not done. So we will continue to use the tools that have proven effective, while also exploring new avenues that may allow us to tackle the deception in other ways. But we could use your help in policing the MLM industry. We encourage you to alert us to deceptive marketing tactics used by MLM companies, or any company for that matter, that you come across. And we strongly encourage victims of these schemes to reach out to us, as well as the FTC. On the screen are ways to contact us and the commission. And with that, I thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you, Laura. That beautifully illustrated, I think, the points that everybody's been making here. So I'm going to now move on to Stephen Barrett, who's a longtime advocate for truth, and especially regarding health products. So Stephen Barrett is a retired psychiatrist, and he's an author, co-founder of the National Council Against Health Fraud, and he's the webmaster of Quackwatch, which has had an enormous following over the years. He focuses on consumer protection, medical ethics, and scientific skepticism. So Stephen, if you turn on your video and microphone, and
my mic is on, but
yes, there we go. I think you're there now.
okay. Thanks. I must say that I'm in absolute awe of the presentation by Tina. I think I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I want to spend a moment talking about it because here we have an organization that's has a relatively small staff, and it found an enormous amount of wrongdoing, documented it, put it together in a very clear way. So if you look at federal agencies, which have somewhat bigger staffs and, you know, hundreds of times, is it hundreds or budgets hundreds of times as big, why aren't they doing this? So I think what Dina has demonstrated is not only that the problem is huge, but an enormous failure on the part of federal agencies. I began looking at, I've been looking at the marketplace, quackery and fraud for more than 50 years, actually. I began looking at MLMs in the early 1980s when there were only a few of them. I collected distributor kits from more than 80 companies during the next 10 or 15 years and looked at the claims they made and how they promoted themselves. In the beginning, the messages were mainly, here's an opportunity to get a great product, to promote health, to make friends. And MLMs were promoted primarily by person to person, meeting with people. They formed little networks that I think provided emotional support. But in the mid 1980s, a new parameter came in, and that was the use of videos. And video, with that, the number of MLMs expanded tremendously. What the videos enabled was the ability to put pictures into your description of, you know, dreams to wish for. And I thought that these were the videos were extremely powerful. The next expansion, I would say, came with the internet, and that enabled people to reach across national boundaries and really have an infinite reach and a very inexpensive way to reach a lot of people. And I think, I can't tell you how many companies have made health-related claims. I'm sure it's over 500. I've probably looked at more than half of them and concluded that there was something wrong. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the kinds of pitches that they made. Tina has done a marvelous job of specifics, but I'm going to talk a little bit more in general. And the pitches are made for products, and they're not necessarily different from what's taking place in the general marketplace. The supplement industry is doing pretty much the same thing. The basic claim is make sure you get enough. There's a lot of use of scare tactics. Are you going to get enough in your diet? Or do you need to buy special foods? Do you need to buy special products? Then there are general claims of prevention. You can be generally healthier. You can be generally more energetic. The more conservative claims are general. They don't make disease claims. Disease claims are really good targets for the enforcement agencies. And what I've seen is most companies make these kinds of claims, and they like that because they're not as apt to be disciplined for it. On the other hand, there are other companies as making specific claims. In many cases, the company itself says, we're not making that claim. You know, you're not allowed to make any claims that we're not authorizing, wink, wink. And yet, when reporters have gone to meetings, they discover that at many of the meetings, there were testimonials made, I took the product and this happened to me, I got better, and so on. Those are hard to monitor. A few companies sell homeopathic remedies, all of which are worthless. Some companies sell herbal products. My general take about all of these products is that supplements and herbs generally have very little value. There have been speculations about a few of them, that they might have some preventive value, but when it turns out, when they're actually studied in a proper way, almost none of them turn out to be useful. My practical advice, and I've spent most of my sideline career as a consumer advocate trying to figure out how to help people make intelligent decisions. My general advice is that supplements and herbs have very little value. But with MLMs, you have a special situation, which is if the claims are true, well, let's see what might be true. There might be some value to, there's some value for some people to take vitamin D. And if they're not out in the sun much. Some people need calcium. They don't eat enough dairy products. Some people, as they get older, have trouble absorbing B12, and a B12 supplement might be useful for some people over 50. Some people who don't get enough iron in their diet and who are menstruating may need to take iron, but that should be based on a decision made with your doctor. And beyond that, there's not a heck of a lot that supplements can do. Supplement mixtures, very few of them have been studied, and fewer still have turned out to be valuable. A few people might benefit from multivitamins if they don't have a good diet, but I recommend that if you are worried about not getting enough, that you do a dietary analysis and see what you might need. And if you need something, change your diet. And if you can't change your diet, take one multivitamin low dose once or twice a week. And that's all you need. And you don't have to pay more than $1 a month for it. In fact, I've concluded that if all dietary supplements were promoted truthfully, the industry would collapse. Why do I say that? Because if you want to honestly market a product, you have to say who doesn't need it. And I can promise you that you will never find anyone who sells supplements who tells you when not to buy their product. And if you're not telling people when not to buy it, you're not marketing honestly. Okay, now the health marketplace, that is the supplement marketplace, is a complete mess, rife with false claims. What can be done about it? Well, education, we'll do the best we can. But I want to focus now on the negative aspects of regulation. I don't know whether Tina has made more complaints than I have. I've made thousands of complaints. They may be ahead of me, or sooner or later they're going to catch up, get way ahead of me. But I've complained to the FDA about more than 1,000 products with illegal claims. And I can tell you that fewer than 1% of them resulted in a warning letter or other action. I don't understand that at all. With regard to the FTC, what I've observed is that I've not seen any way to tell how they figure out what they're going to do or to influence what they're going to do, except that if they get a lot of complaints, they may be more apt to act. And if they think some company has a very significant market share, they may act, or if it's doing something dangerous. But there are lots of companies that violate all of those things, but they don't do anything about. I would like to see the FTC do what they've been doing about COVID claims. They've sent out more than 400, and I think it's up to close to 450 warning letters about COVID claims. That's more than all the court actions they've ever taken about health products. And they've done it within a short time. The FTC often takes years to go from seeing there may be a problem to bringing a case. And by that time, companies may very well be sufficiently established that they can survive. There have probably been something like 20 or 30 MLM actions by the FTC. Some of the companies went out of business and some didn't. So I would like to see the FTC work more quickly and send out more notices in general, like they've been doing for COVID. I think that would be a great thing. That's a tremendous change in policy. The FTC has never sent out that many letters so fast, and I think it's great. The FDA, I don't know why they don't send out more warning letters. There's also a flaw in the law, and that is that most of the actions, or the actions connected to warning letters, carry no penalty. So the way it works is you can start a company, make lots of claims, probably make lots of money, get warned, back off a little, come back. As long as you time things well, you can avoid the more expensive type of attack by a federal agency. And the agencies don't necessarily have a lot of power to make you lose money. If this country wants to have consumer protection, it has to figure out a way to prevent what's happening. You know, we have, I think that the Internal Revenue Service has made it clear that if you cheat on your income tax, there's a reasonable possibility you may pay a penalty. Why can't government agencies have a policy that if you cheat on your health claims, you're not going to make money? And where are the credit card companies? They're making money all the time on deceptive health claims. Why aren't they a player at the table? I hope that this conference can, there are a lot of people involved in this conference, and it's become clear that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are concerned about MLMs. I hope this conference can be the ignition point for a worldwide effort to bring together the separate actions of many of the participants, development of a coordinated educational system where websites that have information can interact and interlink, and an informal, at least an informal network will arise and grow to fight MLMs and for consumer protection in general. I'm going to leave you with two rhetorical questions. Number one, is there an MLM, is there a health-related MLM product that's worth buying? In order to be worth buying, it has to be useful and reasonably priced. In fact, I'm going to answer the question, but that is, the answer is no. Will there ever be? And the answer is no. And why? Because the few products that are useful are available for much less cost. If you want to buy, for example, a multivitamin, you don't have to spend more than $1 a month to get more than you need. If you want to buy it through a multi-level company where it is superior and lots of other things claimed for it, you'll pay 10, 20, 30, 50 times as much. So even if a product is worth buying, you're going to have to pay too much.
Stephen, did you give us the second rhetorical question, or was the second one, will there ever be?
Okay. Just 1 second. Lost my. Okay. Is there an MLM company that offers you a good business opportunity? I think that one's also been answered. So
Okay.
here we have an industry where it offers nothing, but still survives. And I think we need to, develop a coordinated message worldwide that MLM is a predatory industry that has no legitimate, it may be legal, technically legal in the sense that agencies, that it has a legal right to exist. But in my mind, it's not legitimate for the reasons that I've said. And we need
Okay.
to.
Okay, I think that's a good segue into our next speaker. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
So if you'll turn off your camera, and we'll move on to our final speaker, a presenter, who is Hannah Martin, coming to us from the UK. She's the founder of Talented Ladies Club, and an online magazine and training portal for ambitious women. She's an award-winning copywriter for some top advertising agencies. I guess that's in your past. And she's also a qualified psychotherapist, and she's been researching MLM since 2017. So Hannah, I think your camera is already on. So time for you to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I'm just going to share my screen. Can I just check that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So over the past 2 days, we've had lots of experts talk about the perceived problems with the MLM industry. And in particular, in this, I'll turn my camera off, by the way, I get really distracted by seeing my face. In this session, we've explored MLM product and income claims. So with this in mind, I thought I would demonstrate why so many MLM observers and critics believe that companies deceive their recruits. And I just want to caveat that all the companies I mention in this session are not particularly unique. I'm only using them because I've researched these companies and I have the examples to hand. So before I do this, I just want to share one piece of data. Now, Robert mentioned in his session the research that was put together by John Taylor that's published by the Federal Trade Commission. And that research shows that the average percentage of participants in an MLM who will lose money once business expenses, including personal purchases, are deducted, is 99.6%. So on average, 99.6% of people who get involved in an MLM will lose money. So with that in mind, I want to highlight the contrast between the marketing and training messages that MLM companies put out to recruits and what people are actually experiencing. I'm also going to share some of the secrets that the top reps in MLMs don't want you to know about their finances. Secrets they deliberately hide from their recruits to maintain the facade that success and financial wealth is possible. It's the gulf between the two, the messages put out by companies and their top reps, and the reality achieved by the vast majority of participants that leads to some of the results that I'm going to share at the end of our presentation. So I'm now going to contrast examples from 2 companies of marketing messages and their income disclosure statements. As I said, I could share many, many more because from my research, these examples are typical of the industry, but we don't have time and it would get quite boring actually to share the same kind of examples. So I've chosen these 2, as I mentioned, simply because I had the research ready to hand. So let's start with Arbonne. This screenshot was taken from the recruitment page of their website. It sounds very desirable: making money, starting a successful business, transforming your career by choosing when to work and play. Here's another recruitment message from Arbonne. As you can see in this one, they ask whether you would like to earn an extra $1,000 a month, seemingly insinuating this is reasonably possible. The sheet goes on to list some example incomes, starting at district manager with a monthly income of between $250 and $1,000. It also mentions Arbonne's Mercedes-Benz bonus twice. And as you can see here in Arbonne's training materials, their advice is to place a starter order spending enough to be uncomfortable so that you will have to work to pay yourself back. So what's the reality? How long will it take you to earn back your uncomfortable starter order? Let's look at our bond's 2018 income disclosure statement to find out. Now, these tables can be hard to read if you're not used to analysing them, so I'm going to quickly highlight some key facts. In their US compensation summary, Arbonne revealed that they had an average of 174,200 Arbonne independent consultants in the US during 2018, but only 17%, or 3,100, were active on a monthly basis. And it's these people only that they feature in the table above. So of all Arbonne reps in the US in 2018, 83%, which is 144,586 people, apparently made no money. When you factor the entire picture into the calculations using Arbonne's table, this is what all Arbonne reps apparently earned in 2018. So as you can see, 83% earned nothing, 11.4% earned $70 a month, 4.1% earned $320 a month, 1% earned $1,531 a month, 0.34% earned £5,987 a month, and just 0.178 earned £21,711 a month. And remember, these are not typical incomes, average incomes, and this is not profit. These figures do not take into account any expenses or personal purchases. And remember, Arbonne asking whether you would like an extra $1,000 a month. According to their income disclosure statement, you would need to be in the top 1.5% of all their reps to earn over $1,000 a month, and that is before business expenses. And that Mercedes-Benz bonus they mentioned twice, according to their own small print, less than 2% of their consultants achieve this award. And by the way, those who do simply get to lease a white Mercedes in their own name and receive money from Arbonne towards the lease as long as they keep hitting their targets. Now we've contrasted some of the marketing and training information Arbonne recruits see with the company's own income disclosure statement, let's find out how much time Arbonne reps are putting into their business. According to this training document, most invest about 10 to 15 hours a week on average when they start their business. Now we know from Arbonne's income disclosure statement that most people, 83%, earn nothing from their Arbonne business. So that means these people are working between 10 and 15 hours a week, or 520 to 780 hours a year for free. And in fact, anecdotally, from the people we've interviewed, it seems most MLM recruits spend many more than 10 to 15 hours a week trying to get the business to work for them. And according to the UK DSA, 49% of direct sellers work more than 10 hours a week on their business. So moving on from Arbonne, let's look at some of Nu Skin's recruitment messages and compare them with their income disclosure statement. This is from their website, and it states that it's possible to treat Nu Skin as a full-time career or primary source of income. This message says you can earn on a daily basis and receive profits and bonuses each week. This one says that you can build your business as quickly or slowly as you like and commit to building your dream with Nu Skin. And here they talk about building blocks equaling 500 points of sales volume and suggesting aiming for 8 of these blocks on a monthly minimum. They say you'll receive your building blocks bonuses on a weekly basis. And finally, here they talk about recurring orders, or ADRs. This is an order that is automatically made each month like a subscription service. So far, joining Nu Skin seems quite good. It sounds like it's possible to earn a full-time income. There are lots of bonuses and profits to earn each week, and you should aim for about 8 blocks a month. And they even make it easy for you by enabling you to set up monthly orders. So how much can you really earn? Here's Nu Skin's 2019 US income disclosure statement. And like Arbonne, if you want to earn over $1,000 a month before expenses, it shows you need to be in the top 1.19% of all active reps. If only the top 1.19% of all active reps earn over $1,000 a month before expenses, it does not look very possible for most people to treat Nu Skin as a full-time career or primary source of income. As with Arbonne, Nu Skin only includes active brand affiliates who made any money in that table, and only 17.85% of all brand affiliates are active. So what does active mean? As you can see, active brand affiliate or distributor is someone who's placed an order within the past 3 months. They need to obtain 100 PDV, the point system that they use to calculate order values, and make 5 retail sales a month. So that means that 82.15%, according to my calculation, of new skin reps who are actively working their business made no money. As you can see from both Arbonne and New Skin's income disclosure statements, it appears that over 80% of people who are actively trying to make the business work make no money. And of those who do make any money, less than 2% of both companies made more than $1,000 a month before expenses. And every MLM income disclosure statement that we have investigated so far has shown the same patterns. For this, it just confirms Dr. John Taylor's research, published by the FTC, showing that on average, 99.6% of MLM participants will lose money once business expenses are deducted. It also, for us, dangerously contradicts the recruitment messages shared by companies and their own reps, like this Facebook post from a River Living rep in the UK, claiming that all people need to do to earn $50,000 in a year is to use the products, i.e. spend your own money with a company, share the products, and build a regular base of around 20 to 30 customers, and share the opportunity with 5 to 10 people daily, Monday to Friday. If it was that easy, don't you think that more than 1.5% of people in MLMs would do it? Don't you think that less than 80% of people would lose money? We believe that the MLM companies and their top reps, the 0.4% who do make money, know the opportunity will fail for most people, but they need those people to join and remain with the MLM for as long as possible for the companies and the top reps to earn money. Now, I'm going to briefly share some more examples of what I believe is deception in the industry. This Facebook post is one of the top UK Forever Living reps congratulating another one on her success in the company. And here's a screenshot from the publicly available accounts of the successful rep. As you can see, they show her business liabilities are greater than its assets. In accounting terms, this means her company is insolvent. This is a high-profile Forever Living rep who receives one of their big checks every year and appears in promotional company videos, but whose business is in effect currently insolvent. Here's a Facebook post from another Forever Living rep, another top one in the UK, claiming, as you can see here, that she's debt-free. And here's a screenshot from her publicly available company accounts, showing that she has taken out a large director's loan and owes her business £206,000, which is roughly equivalent to 280,000 US dollars. Here's 2 more screenshots from the company accounts of 2 more top Forever Living reps who are paraded on stage with huge checks each year. And as you can see, each one has a director's loan. One of them is £402,000 and the other £753,000. That's roughly $550,000 and $1 million. A director's loan, by the way, for those of you who aren't in the UK, don't know, it's money you take out of the company, but you owe the company. You either have to repay that money within a year, or you have to pay around 33% tax on that money. Most of the MLM reps that you're seeing here repay, like basically they take out that loan every year. So the loans are never paid back, and often most of them go up year on year.
And I should give you two minutes here now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we can have some quick Q&A too. Okay,
cool. And here's a screenshot of another one who's also paraded on stage, who is actually owes $53,000, whose company's in liquidation. She made an agreement with solicitors to pay back £500 a month, and she has not paid that money back. She also, as you can see here, owes £183,000 as well in unsecured creditors. This same woman also shares this, which is, I think, ironic. Kindness never goes out of style. I think kindness is paying back your debts personally. And here's another woman who was also in Forever Living, has now been in several MLMs since, claiming that she's incredibly successful, and she is, in fact, at the time she wrote that, was subject to a bankruptcy order. So this is how this deception leads to devastating financial, social and emotional consequences in many people. People who buy into the dream they're sold only to find it doesn't exist. People are told that quitting is failure, that looking critically at the opportunity is having a negative mindset. And those who don't make it work are losers. And for the people who are involved in this conference, this is why everyone is so passionate about exposing the industry. I think it's only fitting that we end this conference giving these victims, as I see them, a voice. These are the people who are losing money. We've talked about the industry for 2 days, so I'm going to just end this final session with some messages and publicly shared posts from former MLM reps. So this is what MLM is doing to people currently. In the next few slides, I'm just going to share a tiny sample of the posts and messages that have been shared either with me or have seen publicly. I've anonymized them and hidden any reference to companies they are with. These posts are from former reps from a wide number of MLM companies. And just a warning, if you are likely to be triggered by any of the mental damage caused by MLMs, you may want to just look away. I'm sorry, probably should have put a warning about the language on this one, but I think it's quite an important message. And finally, I just want to say that in the past 4 years, I have interviewed many former MLM reps, and without exception, they all lost money, including one woman who was considered to be successful. And they all told me they were psychologically damaged in some way. From shame at seeing Facebook memories or admitting they'd missed their children's birthday lunches for team meetings, to embarrassment at how they treated friends, or guilt over the distance they'd created with family and the debt they were hiding from their partners. Most had product they'd personally purchased still sitting in garages and spare rooms, and all regretted getting involved with the MLM. In the majority of cases, it was less like an interview and more like therapy, and most insisted on anonymity, scared of the repercussions from their former MLM team. This is what MLM can do to people, and why events like this conference, I believe, are so important. Thank you very much for giving me your time today.
Yes, Hannah, stay with us for just a moment. I want a couple of things in your presentation. One, you're referring to account or publicly available information on some of the, which for those in the US, this may seem pretty odd because we don't have that here. So Eric Scheibler, for example, mentioned he had been up on the stage taking autographs and so on, but as he says in his book, he was never making any money. Actually, you know, he was broke, and there he was being portrayed as you've given some of the others. But there was no way to provide evidence of that. But in the UK, you can actually look up some of this information on people, which is not available.
As long as they have a limited company. If they have a limited company, they have to submit their accounts to Companies House, which is published. Yeah. And I think that's why I wanted to show that, because these are people who are fated. These are people who are apparently in the top 0.4%. But as you can see, the amount of money it takes to stay in the lifestyle that they use to recruit people, and actually, from what I've heard, to buy the large checks that they get and maintain their downlines. They don't actually, I think, if you looked into their finances, I don't think they make anywhere near the amount that they're claiming. No. And they're certainly not debt free.
No. And the other thing I wanted to clarify, because this has come up so often in presentations, you made a reference to it too. Dr. Taylor's paper on the data, and because I worked with him on these, is published on the FTC website as a comment, actually. It's not published by the FTC. That is, the FTC didn't take it and say, here, the world should see this. They published it because they published all the comments that had come in. And I think that was primarily when they ultimately exempted MLM from the business opportunity rule. And John had submitted his data as evidence that the business opportunity rule should cover multi-level marketing, which it did not. I'm going to try to share one of his that I tried earlier. Let me just give it a shot to see if I can. So maybe somebody can tell me with Hannah and I both, can I do this? Yes, I can, I believe. Here it is. And I want to, can everybody see that slide? That slide is what is showing, that is a new skin, that is a depiction of the new skin downline for one Blue Diamond distributor. Blue diamonds are the, you know, the top that in that upper quarter of 1% or so. Now, again, if you were to join New Skin, you would be here, somewhere there. And you are admonished to go Blue Diamond. This is the kind of downline that you would have to create. You need 12 in your first line. And this is all according to how the rules are worked out for you to get to these levels. So you can see almost nobody is going to be able to be there. So it's not just income. It's not just products. It's the scheme itself that you've been deceived about. How could it be possible that you could even accurately or truthfully ever describe your odds of success? How could an MLM ever truthfully say what the actual average incomes are, not just of the ones in that 1 year, but all those that have cycled in and out in order to have this person up here gain this six-figure income? Anyway, that's the slide I didn't get to show in my earlier presentation. And for those that want to see this, I'd be glad to send it to you as well. Okay, so I think we're ready to go to some Q&A. We have time. And that's Stacy Bosley, who has been in other presentations here. So she is known, Dr. Bosley. And so everybody on our panel has their camera on. Good. And Stacy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Bob. So there's been a lot of comments here, and hopefully we can get to as many as possible. I'm gonna try to group them a little bit. So one of the things that's coming up is this question about how to encourage or make it easy for consumers to say or complain if they see things that they think are improper health or income claims, because so many people see but don't know what to do about it. So can anybody speak to what they think might work as a good mechanism for facilitating consumer complaints in this area? Laura, do you want to take that first?
Sure. You know, from our end, we encourage everyone to submit tips to us. They can do so anonymously, or they can provide their name. We also encourage consumers to also alert the FTC. That does help them have peripheral vision as to which MLMs have a lot of victims. But always, everyone should definitely feel free, and we encourage them to contact us and the FTC and even the DSSRC to let them know what's going on.
Stephen, I think maybe you wanted to contribute, but you're muted.
Okay, the key principle is push every button you can find. Complain, complain, complain. Don't forget your state attorney general, but don't expect any result from your complaint. You still should complain, because basically what's happened is it's a numbers game, that your complaints are competing for regulatory attention with armed robbers, other false advertisers, and lots of other things that are wrong. But you should complain, because that will, in the long run, up the priority. You should also complain to members of Congress, because we really need to have something done with making the laws more efficient and the agencies more efficient.
Thank you, Hannah. Did you want to add anything?
I just say that obviously I'm in the UK. I have made a habit of reporting to the DSA in the UK. I don't think they're terribly effective from experience, but I think the more people that do complain, they had to sit up and take notice, and they can't claim, as they have done in the past, they don't receive complaints. So I agree with Stephen in principle. I think just complain wherever you can, because if there's enough volume of complaints, at some point something's got to happen.
And there was actually a follow-on suggestion, which Laura might be able to speak to a little bit, a potential partnership with somebody like Tina and the FTC, where they might, and social media companies, where you might be able to flag things that show up sort of immediately within a social media environment. And I don't know if you have anything to add about the possible feasibility of that idea.
Well, I can't speak for the FTC, but that is something that we have been talking about and would like to do. I know that the National Advertising Division has a system where they can flag claims for Facebook. So it looks like the social media platforms are at least interested in working with regulators and consumer groups. So that's definitely something on our radar.
Great. Another, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just an amusing story that well, amusing but quite sad. I complained to the Advertising Standards Authority in the UK about some posts made by a rep who was claiming that a product would help with a cancer treatment. And they came back to me and said it was no different than someone saying they loved a pair of trainers. And I pointed out this person was selling it. And then the Advertising Standards Authority actually investigated me. That said that I was a jealous competitor. And so rather than looking at this woman, actually looked at me, which I just thought was quite amusing and quite sad in the sense that I really didn't understand what MLM was.
Interesting. Another question that comes up then is penalties. And so a number of people have asked about, again, if you can speak again about what kind of consequences there are for firms or distributors who engage in improper claims and what it would look like to increase the consequences.
Well, you know, at present, there is no rule that pertains to MLM marketing such that a violation of the rule would result in a penalty. Thus far, there have been a number of warning letters sent to companies by the FTC. Though we have great respect for the FTC lawyers who are boots on the ground and doing the work, in our view, the warning letters are not all that effective. One example is they sent 2 rounds of warning letters to MLM companies pertaining to COVID-19 claims. They warned more than a dozen companies, and when we reviewed those companies, we found that every single one of them, after having received a warning letter, were still making deceptive health and income claims after the fact. And 10 out of the 16 were also putting them in the context of the pandemic. So our view is that's not enough. It's a start, but it's not an end. Commissioner Chopra has advocated for turning on the penalty offense switch, which would allow for civil penalties in certain cases, and we think that could be a great idea, and you know, we would love to see that happen.
So this actually maybe is a segue into another question, which is about larger requirements for the industry and a potential change to something like the business opportunity rule, or Hannah, in your case, right? Something internationally, right, in terms of a change to the rules of the road especially related to representations. And in particular, could firms be required to disclose, again, something like an income disclosure requirement? I just want to tag on a question, since I studied disclosure, is this notion of what would it look like to be an effective disclosure? So you know, do you think it's viable that a disclosure requirement could be something that could be adopted? And B, what would it look like to then have effective disclosure?
That would be rather tricky. And I think that the agency that brought it about would probably have to spend a fair amount of energy and maybe even have public hearings to negotiate what would determine what the actual disclosure is. The FTC tried to get this in a business opportunity rule in 2006 and withdrew it with really very little public explanation. That certainly would be a good first step, is to force income disclosure and have a severe penalty for not disclosing. I think in order to bring that about, in the United States, it would require an act of Congress.
Stacy, can I ask direct a question over to Laura? Actually, I asked her the question earlier privately. We had a conversation about this. The question is, taking all the MLMs, or let's just take the ones perhaps that are in the DSA, there's about 200 there. What is the true, that was part of our title of our session, the true number. What is the true median income for all people in multi-level marketing? That is median income, half make more, half make less. Can you give a figure to that, Laura?
Well, if you look at income disclosure statements, it's clear that a vast majority of distributors don't make any money. And that's why
that would make it zero.
Right.
As median income would be zero.
So that's why FTC law requires companies to disclose typical results. It's not, does not require advertising to disclose average earnings. And there's a good reason for that. It only takes a handful of top earners to skew the number. So if you have 1 out of 100 distributors making $1 million and the 99 others make $1 each, the average payout is $10,000 and change, and that's before expenses. So an average in that case would not equal typical, and that's why that's not what's required.
And just as connected to this same question about median income, and I'd give this to the whole panel, the DSA used to publish what they said was the median income. It was $2,400. It came from a study they did in 2002. In 2016, the chairman of the FTC quoted that number, 2004, Edith Ramirez, quoted that number, $2,400. Of course, if you took half the population of the direct sellers and multiplied it by just the minimum, 2,400, it couldn't work. The incomes would be greater than the sales, the total sales. So it was an impossible number. But that number has been in the New York Times. It's been in Forbes, that the average median, half make more than this. Another number that they published, the DSA, was that that 41% earned more than $10,000 a year. Again, just do the numbers. It can't possibly be true. So now I notice there's no numbers published by the industry on median or any breakdown like that, unless y'all have seen one at TINA. Have you, Laura, seen an overall number of that anybody could refer to, median or medium, or mean or median average?
Entire industry, you mean, or for one particular company?
Whole industry, or all DSA members, or the whole industry? Yeah.
Might make an interesting soundbite to flash on some websites. The median income of MLL distributors is zero. No explanation, just nice soundbite.
Yeah. You don't know of a number either. I'm taking that, Laura.
I haven't seen that for at least this year. I know in the past you quoted a number, but not presently.
Yeah. Okay, so Stacy, I just wanted to add that in since we were right on that number.
Yes, thanks. So another question is about sort of implied versus explicit claims, and whether or not in some ways certain rules around claims can be sort of, I think the intention of the question is, can they sort of be sidestepped by using implied claims instead? And I'm curious also if you've seen sort of any changes in the use of very explicit claims versus sort of implied claims over the last few years. This would relate to health or income. And Stephen, if you'd want to start, because the question was actually around health initially. If there's, again, a way to kind of change the way you're making the claim that makes it harder to enforce rules.
Well, I can answer that.
Yes.
In 1993, in the United States, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act was passed, and that enabled, that set back consumer protection in the United States by probably half a century. It just enabled companies to make all kinds of implied claims without, they call them structure function claims, without fear of prosecution, because the FDA was giving priority to, quote, health claims where they were disease claims. So the answer is that claims can still be misleading, but the agencies don't have the capacity to handle all of them. There are hundreds of thousands of sellers making claims. The agency can't handle all of them by going after them on a case-by-case basis. So there's a lot to, I think they can be more efficient, but they're always going to be there.
Laura, Hannah, do you feel like you've seen a change in the use of implied versus explicit claims as you've been monitoring it?
It's interesting what Robert was saying just now, that it's in the past 4 years since I've been investigating them, the anti-MLM, the critical MLM community has grown, and there's been a lot more critical look at MLMs, and year on year their income disclosure statements get harder to read and there's less data on them. So and I noticed this because I would go and refresh my investigations into companies each year with their updated numbers, and there's less to look over each year. So I think, they are, it seems from my perspective, they are trying harder to hide, I believe, kind of the real truth. But I think that's less addressing that question, but it was a side point, which I thought was quite interesting.
You really can't count them, and you not only have the claims by the companies, but you have the claims by the individual distributors. So that I'm not sure whether there is a trend. It might take an enormous amount of research, and I'm not actually sure you could do it, because there are so many sources now with the internet that I don't think you can count.
Stephen and I have had conversations about the relative significance of MLM products to the MLM proposition, as it's a financial proposition, but it involves a product too. And one thing that I've observed over the years is that the MLM product, the health product, can take on a magical property in MLM in particular, and people will accept this idea that it is really a miracle product because it is part of the mystical MLM pay plan. No other pay plan or program offers unlimited income, wealth beyond imagination, no potential, no other company can say their potential is always unlimited, and so on. So when you enter the MLM world, you come into a magical realm where everything is possible, including the pay plan itself, which has no limit. So now they introduce you to what is actually an ordinary supplement or vitamin, but it can take on suddenly a miraculous property to itself. And almost like, well, if the company is this fantastic and life-changing and world-changing, surely they wouldn't be selling just an ordinary vitamin C product. It must be the best on earth, right? So I think food supplements and health products inside MLM take on a certain new quality that they don't ordinarily just sitting on the shelf of a health food store or a grocery store.
And I did want to note, if you see, again, claims that someone had asked how to report claims. And again, the FTC has a site, reportfraud.ftc.gov, which I think might have just been shared out in chat and also will be on the website. Hannah, you were going to say?
I have to say, just to what Robert said about the entering the magical world of MLM, and I think people often ask, why do people move from company to company? And I think they buy the dream. They buy the fantasy that is MLM, which is that you can work from home around your children, just selling stuff to mums at the school gate and make unlimited amount of money. And when one business doesn't work for them, they simply move that dream onto another company because they're still retaining that dream.
I think that was something that has an interesting potential to be studied more. The AARP MLM survey was one of the first that I'd seen that tried to document the number of MLMs that people have been in, and that's something we know about, but I think we don't understand fully yet. And you raised some good possibilities there, right, in terms of why that might happen. Laura, there's a question specifically about Tina's experience related to the Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council. Can you speak to the group's experience?
Sure. We've sent a number of complaints to the DSSRC, and our experience has generally been a good one. They're responsive to our complaints. They take them seriously, take action to communicate the findings to the companies at issue, and typically they're able to get the companies to remove many of the claims at issue. The problem, of course, is the same problem faced by other regulatory bodies, which is that the companies at issue tend to remove just those claims presented to them and then don't do their homework to find all the deceptive claims out there to remove. But in our view, the more hands on deck to address this widespread deceptive marketing issue, the better. Just another issue I'd point out is that the DSSRC only discloses the name of the company at issue when it's the subject of a formal investigation and closing report. It does not disclose the company when the file is what they call administratively closed. And that limits the ability of anyone else, us included, to know which companies have been using deceptive tactics, even if they do respond to the DSSRC promptly and take the claims down right away. But overall, Tina.org, we engage with the MLM industry. Not only do we send complaints to the DSSRC and communicate pretty regularly with the lawyers there, we also reach out to the DSA. We speak at MLM conferences. We reach out to the companies for comment for the articles on our site, and we discuss issues with distributors.
I think one of the questions that people have is about, sort of the ways in which this is actively monitored. Obviously, Hannah, you're actively monitoring it from your perspective. Laura, you're doing the same, and Stephen as well, sort of as individual constituents or part of organizations. But the question is about whether or not the FTC, for example, attends business opportunity conferences or things where, or other monitoring, sort of proactive monitoring, instead of, I guess, you sort of having this diffused sort of monitoring that occurs by individuals or organizations. Is anyone aware of, to some degree, it might be in the UK or elsewhere, any proactive monitoring of this by the Federal Trade Commission or other formal authorities?
There's no, in the UK, as far as I know, we don't have anything like that at all. Like I said, the Advertising Standards Authority doesn't understand how MLMs work. And in the UK, the DSA sort of almost positions themselves as a regulatory body, but is formed of and paid for by MLM companies themselves, and from my experience don't do anything at all. And in fact, I have been on the radio with the current Director General of the DSA, and she has said things on the radio that were directly opposite what the DSA were paying for publications in newspapers, saying that the lockdown was a brilliant time to start a business, a direct selling business. And she was quoted in that advertorial, and on air she said that they took a decision as a DSA that it would be unethical to promote it as a money-making opportunity now, to take advantage of people. So I find that actually in the UK, personally my experience at DSA causes more damage than not, and as far as I know, there's no other body looking at it.
A very interesting thing has happened in the UK. I follow what the British Advertising Standards Authority has been doing, and the number of health-related complaints has dropped tremendously over the last 10 years. And one of the reasons for the drop is that some groups have convinced the authority to make sweeping policies for things like homeopathic remedies, and chiropractic, I think, is another one. The authority published guidances and has greatly reduced certain types of claims. And I think I bet you, I wouldn't be surprised if you could persuade the authority to set up rules about income claims. They might very well establish a standard. It's not a complicated process. I'll bet you could convince them if you presented data and maybe had a few other people pester them as well. It's like lobbying a legislator. Maybe they would set up barriers to the making of false income claims.
Laura, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I think Dr. Barrett and Hannah answered it great.
Okay, great. I mean, I think one of the things that, again, continues to come up is what kind of information would be useful to people. You've talked about, median income or loss. But I think again, you can think of this from a health or an income perspective. Based on your experiences with consumers, what does it look like to give information in a way that could be received? And I think of both sort of the content of the information, the timing with which they receive the information, and the mode. So, whether it could be print or video or audio, anything you have, and you all have experience with consumers. What were your thoughts on those kinds of questions about mode, content, timing of disclosure?
I would personally really like to see a point where if someone's considering joining a company, they go away, they have time to think about it, they pressure into it, they receive information like the amount of time they would have to put into it in the first year, the amount of money that they would be expected to spend on products, and realistically what they would earn. And we all know from the conversations in this session, that's probably zero. But I think they should have that information given to them. And I think time is a big thing that's often not looked at, because women I've spoken to are told, even if you go to the toilet, you're supposed to be working on the toilet. You're supposed to be working at 2 a.m. One woman was told that she had to be awake selling for her US upline when they were awake. So she was expected to be awake at 6 a.m. and at 2 a.m. So really long days. So I think information like that would be really important. The realistic thing is it's really hard to find that data. I mean, someone commented, I think yesterday in the Q&A, that his wife was obviously in an MLM and she would buy products with her parents' name, with her parents' address to get her numbers up. And that as far as the company was concerned, that was a genuine order from a real customer. So I think the companies themselves often aren't aware of really how much money is being spent by the reps within them. But if we could find some way to get accurate, realistic data of how much time, how much money they would spend, how much they might earn, and then given that information to go away and think about it without pressure, that would be a good situation to be in for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I want to go one step further, and that is, people ask all the time, what's the most effective way to persuade somebody to do something? It's the wrong question. The question, I mean, the answer is not to answer the question. The answer is do something, put up the truth. The problem is we need to get out the message. People will tend to believe what they hear the most, and the people who call ourselves truth tellers, we need to get the message out there. Push every button, clog every channel, get it out there. You'll help some people. You may not help the people who are being asked about, but if the more information we put out, the more it helps. And the exact technique is not as important as getting out volumes, in my opinion.
I think we've made a good start over these last 2 days. Having, as I said earlier, been in the dark ages for so long, this whole thing is so miraculous that this information, and now it's going to be published, it's been recorded, it'll be available, and hopefully you'll get as many hits as John Oliver's breakthrough show in 2016 has gotten on multi-level marketing. So maybe we'll compete with the John Oliver show. So I think our session is complete here, and I'll turn it back over to Bill, who I believe we're going to close out at today's session, and do a wrap up at this point. And then I believe there's going to be a facilitated conversation, wide open, that will come after us. So we can turn off our cameras now, our panel, and go to Bill.
Thank you, Robert. I was going to ask all of our panelists, if they're comfortable doing so, to turn on their cameras and share any last comment they might have. We have about 20 22 panelists, I think here, maybe 24, somewhere like that. One thing I would like our attendees to see is this wall of portraits of people who care about consumer protection and consumer harm in the MLM industry. I just wanted to, I'll just give my comments here and I'll let other people speak as well. First, I want to say something about data. This last session shared with us data. Tina generated original data. Hannah had done some analysis in the UK. When I published earlier this year in Seeking Alpha using DSA data that the industry was actually in relative decline in the United States, I had 10,000 views on that Seeking Alpha, more than twice that I had on any other piece. Data is important. And it's also something that the industry is loath to share. And so I would encourage people to get and keep and share data. That's one thing. The second thing is I just thought I'd make a general comment about our event. Our purpose here was to provide a format to share perspectives on consumer harm in the MLM industry and ways to protect against that harm. The industry expends a tremendous amount of resources annually to tell the story of a positive consumer experience. In one way or another, virtually every one of our speakers offered a caution against that story, including our keynote speaker, FTC Commissioner Phillips. So I wanted to kind of put a explanation point there as to what it is that we wanted to do and hopefully did do in these last couple of days. And then I'll go ahead and be quiet. And anybody else, who else would like to share some final comments?
I have two quick comments if I could, Bill. This is Eric Scheibler. I just want to clarify one thing. Bob had mentioned earlier that I had made no money and was celebrated on stage, and we did speak on stage to thousands. We made a small income. We made a fraction of what we were promised we were going to make at the level we were at in that MLM, and eventually went bankrupt. But I wanted to clarify that. But also in how we talk about this, like I think semantics are very important. We talk about independent business owners or distributors, which is the industry semantics, and these truly are consumer investors. And so when we talk about the median or the average income being zero, that's not accurate. The median or the average is a loss. The average consumer investor never makes back their initial investment, whatever the first buy-in is, and they lose money progressively for their entire duration in that particular MLM. So the average is not zero. The average is a loss, and sometimes devastating losses. These are often people that are recruited because they have significant debt and they're in a bad financial way and see this as the way out. And then this is often the tipping point that puts them over the edge.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to say something. Okay, make sure that it's on and everything. What I forgot to mention when I went to the whole cease and desist and everything that I did with the Brobot, that I did get a very interesting email. And this email was, how much will it cost for you to take down a video? And I just never responded to that. And then another thing I would like to offer is you've mentioned data, Bill. I have put together a very comprehensive survey. Now, I'm not a researcher or an academic or anything, but the link to my survey is always in my video descriptions because I am collecting data. So far, I have over 200 respondents. It's based on the AARP study and also a psychological abuse study that was done. And I also overlaid the BITE model on everything. And so, you know, if you have been impacted by this industry, just find one of my videos on the Recovering Hunbot and the link should be in there. And if it's not, you can always reach out to me on social media. I'm the Recovering Hunbot wherever I am on social media. Thank you.
I just say, someone asked in comments what they could say to someone who was in an MLM and they're worried about them. The best advice that I've seen is asking people to just keep track of their finances and if possible, have a separate bank account for their MLM business in which they put all of the money they spend on products themselves. So record how much money you spend on products, how much money you spend in your business, what money comes in, and the time, how many hours a week are you working. Keep a monthly figure like this, and it will soon become apparent if it's working for you or not. But I think that's really important. It's basic business practice. I mean, anyone who has a business should be doing that anyway, but often in MLMs they're not encouraged to do it. But I think if someone was to do that, they couldn't argue with those numbers.
Anyone else? Next.
I just want to offer, if anyone's interested, sorry, Maura, in, again, academic work in this area, please let me know. I think one thing we haven't mentioned, or I missed if someone has, that the Direct Selling Education Foundation works to provide grants and partnerships with academics that in many ways promote direct selling within classrooms or within research. And I think it would be really nice to see a growing community of people who are doing the consumer protection work around this area.
Terrific. Laura?
Yeah, well, I suppose to follow on from Hannah, I've been asked by several journalists what I would advise people who are getting into MLMs to think about, and the most simple thing is you can Google profit and loss sheet for Excel and get a very sophisticated bookkeeping system essentially that just runs through Excel or Google Docs, and will keep track of your outgoings and your income, and then potentially divide that by the amount of hours you spend on it and see if picking up a shift at Tesco's would be more effective, which unfortunately in many cases it often is. In response to Stacey, I would say there has been some discussion among some of the academic members of the various steering committee and panels about potentially formalizing something, a research group or something similar. I would be very interested in doing that and very happy to do that. And I think I kind of mentioned in passing at one stage, if there's any EU people on the call, I have a potential source of funding for a grad student if anyone is interested in that.
Who's next?
I'll say, I want to just reiterate what Steve Barrett said at the end of his presentation, which I think is crucial, is that everybody, if you have a bad experience with an MLM, you've got to tell the story. You've got to tell it to the FTC. You've got to tell it to your state attorney general. Tell it to Tina. And I hate to do this, as much as anonymous complaints are popular these days. It's much more effective if you put your name on it. I understand that some people are afraid of doing that, and there's good reasons for that. But you need to come forward, and more people are coming forward. But for decades, the FTC did a consumer fraud surveys going back a few years, and they found that victims of pyramid schemes are the least likely to complain about what happened to them. And there is this history of not a lot of people complaining about, they basically walk away from their losses. We have to change that. I think with all the social media stuff that is going on, I think people are changing, but it's clear to me from listening to the regulators yesterday, they need to hear from folks, and they have limited resources, and they have a lot of other things that they have to deal with. So we need to be louder.
So I just wanted to add, part of the indoctrination in MLMs is that there's no such thing as a victim. It's drilled into people's heads, and I think that's part of why no one's complaining, because they've been indoctrinated to say they chose it. They don't understand the lack of informed consent. They don't understand all the psychology that's used on them. And then quickly, I want to say I'm very interested in doing more research with my bite model. So Alana, I'm thrilled you're collecting data. This is the first quantitative study instrument that we need to validate. And show that's reliable. And MLMs was a fantastic place to gather data on this.
Thank you, Stephen. Katie?
Thanks. Yes, I was just going to add on about filing reports, say thank you so much for that plug. It really is so critical for us to be able to get information. And one thing I can add is that if folks are collecting some evidence, you know, if you have your compensation plan, have examples of what you've received, you can hang on to that and then note that you have that in your report when you file it. The reports aren't just used by the FTC, but many other law enforcers across the country and even internationally. And then also, I just wanted to thank the organizers again and say how excited I am to see all of the many examples of possible coordination and collaboration we're talking about going forward. Thank you all so much for the work you're doing, and I'd love to be in touch with you about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Claudia.
I also just want to thank everyone, and I'd love to be in touch and to do more research and combine forces also across the ocean. So countries are different, but there are many, many problems that are very, very similar. So I hope to talk to more of you in a chat and follow up. And yeah, let's get together and yeah, do something. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve, Peter?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the uniformity of experiences that I have myself experienced from the beginning, but that I don't often talk about. In 1996, I began my pyramid scheme work at the FTC. And in that year, there was a Time magazine about the 2 fastest company growing in America, or the 2 fastest growing companies in America. And on the picture of the magazine was Bill Gates from Microsoft and Bill Gould from Equinox. They were on the front picture, and the similarities here between them. And in 1997, I began to work on a case called Equinox, which was resolved in 1999 by the FTC. It was FTC versus Equinox. And the uniformity of experiences was this. One of the people who testified against Bill Gould, the leader, the top of the company, was a man named Robert Steiler, who was within the top echelon of the people. And this is within the court record, so I'm not saying anything untoward. And Robert Steiler testified that while he was the guru of the compensation plan and the mysteries of it, because nobody understood it, except Robert Steiler, and he admitted in court he didn't quite understand it, but he said that he thought of the cultic leader, Bill Gould, as indeed a cult leader. He said it. And he said that while he was himself giving testimonies of his car, which was a beautiful car, we're talking 1996, okay? Beautiful car, beautiful house. But while he was pointing on videos to that car, his car was actually being repossessed, he testified. And while he pointed to his beautiful house, wonderful house for 1996, it was actually in default, and his mortgage he was in default of his mortgage. And in his little book, he wrote a book about his experiences once he decided that he would testify against the company. And he tried to explain how could he ever have gone along with any of this at all. And the name of his book the title was Spellbound, a wonderful title, Spellbound, because he said, the reason was, he said, I was spellbound. He was himself caught up, and Stephen Hassan will recognize this. He was himself caught up in this whole thing of, this is wonderful, okay? And he believed Bill Gould, but then in the end, he testified against him in court. And the only explanation was that he, Robert Steiler, was spellbound. And after all, he was only following the slogan of his leader, which was this: you got to fake it until you make it. That was the slogan. And Robert Steiler confessed. Basically, his, in my opinion, his courtroom testimony was a confession that this is the way it was, okay? And that was one of my first experiences in pyramid schemes. And that was I started in 1997 with this case, and it was fully resolved in court by 1999. The FTC did win the case, but it was an example. But I don't often talk about this kind of, psychic experience about all of this, but there's a uniformity in this experience in that it goes way back to my earliest experiences that I myself had in this area.
Thank you, Peter. Robert, did you want to say something?
Well, yes, this is a comment I made during the presentation about what is MLM. One of my hopes is that ultimately more and more of us will look at MLM just on the basis of what actually is occurring, and not take it from the presumption that it is a business. That's really an unfounded presumption that it is a business. One reason that pay plan is so unfathomable, Peter, is that it isn't a pay plan. It's a money transfer formula. It doesn't exist anywhere else in business. And I was in distribution for 20 years. I studied contracts and pay plans constantly. Nobody had ever seen anything like this, and nobody would ever go along with such in real business. So to me, I think if we could strip away this false identity that has been sort of imposed on us over so many years, and just kind of open our eyes and say, well, what is it though? We're not going to say whatever it is. We'll just say, here's what it does. Here's what we know about it. Here's the data we've seen from it. And then I believe if the FTC itself could stop saying over and over again, it's a legitimate business. But then if you ask the FTC, then please name the ones that you would endorse as legitimate. They don't. But if they just drop that whole thing and let it speak for itself without that identity, we would advance our cause more. This is, I said, part of my journey, and that's kind of documented in my book. That was really where I went, starting and then ending at that presumption, at that conclusion about a commercial cult.
Thank you, Robert. Oh, Stephen.
So the same law professor who did the social influence model I talked about, this is his other Guttmacher award-winning book on hypnosis and law. And I really believe these groups are using hypnotic methodology that we need to explore.
Thank you.
Spellbound is a good term for it.
I want to make sure anybody else gets a chance to talk. We've got a few more minutes before we move into our session with attendees.
I just wanted to thank the steering committee and Bill in particular for pulling together what has been a really terrific conference. And we at TINA.org, we really look forward to working with other advocates on behalf of consumers to inform and to fight for harmed consumers. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I just add, I'm so sorry. Thanks too. I'm just shuffling a kid in and out of the house, but this has been fantastic. Really exciting to see how many people are here and to see all your faces. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Stacy, was that you?
Yes, but I didn't want to interrupt Jay Marie. That'd be terrible. I guess I just wanted to add, I think there's a lot of different ways forward, and I know we sometimes have slightly different perspectives on what that looks like. For me, one of the things that I think would be a nice step forward as well is to really deal with no product pyramid schemes, the gifting circles, because I think that those are so ubiquitous in our environment that people actually lose sight of the fact that structure by definition is illegal. And so then you add on layers to that, and it feels like they can have not a prayer of understanding, right, the true bones of that structure and why it's problematic. So one of the things I've wondered about is, again, why regulatory bodies can't be more aggressive against those. They're so clearly out of bounds. And, just to suggest, we also did an experiment where we presented people with the airplane game at a state fair. And again, only about half of people even knew that kind of structure was an illegal structure, right? Again, it's pervasive. And so I'd love to see some action on that front as well, just as a good starting point as well.
There are recently susu clubs in the African-American community. have been spreading quickly.
And blessing moms on Instagram. I don't know if we've talked about that a lot, but big
And gifting circles, there's every kind of name for them, right?
All affinity based.